we have a war that's widening. We have Americans dead in Kuwait. Army Reserve service members killed in a drone attack on March 1st. And we have in a commander-in-chief a man who dodged the draft, addressing those deaths, saying, quote, sadly, there will likely be more before it ends. There's a new website making the rounds, and it's the peak of patriotism. Check this out.
A South Park writer just set up a website to draft Baron Trump to the war in the Middle East with Iran. And I love this. It has gone incredibly viral. It is so funny. It's draftbarontrump.com, and it says, America is strong because its leaders are strong. Trump proves that every day. Naturally, his son Baron is more than ready to defend the country his father so boldly commands. Service is honor, strength is inherited. Dog bless Baron. They also include an About Us section that says, this site is dedicated to honoring the strongest and bravest voices in war. When power is projected abroad, it is only right that strength exists at home. If you're looking at proven genes, inherited courage, and unquestionable resolve, look no further than the Trump family. Leadership starts somewhere. And they accompany that paragraph with a photo of Donald Trump asleep right on the website. The website also includes some very real testimonials, such as one from Donald Trump himself. Quote, people come up to me with tears in their eyes and they say, sir, you're the strongest. Send Baron off to war. I've always been strong, very strong, stronger than anyone expected. Some say the strongest ever, and strength matters, believe me. This website was set up by Toby Morton, a South Park writer who has many other websites trolling the Trump administration. This is his latest one, and I think it is truly hilarious. So go check it out, and let's make this Draft Baron Trump movement go viral everywhere.
All right. It looks like a recruitment page, reads like patriotism, right? But it plays like satire. And that's the trick, because satire only really works when it's close enough to the truth to sting a bit. Now, the site's about language praises strength and courage and inherited bravery, right? But then it kind of turns the knife when it says, if you're looking for proven genes, inherited courage, look no further than the Trump family. And instantly you can see how absurd it is. Now, inevitably, there are going to be supporters that think that this is a real thing. And that is what takes it from absurd to funny. But it's also a mirror. Because while American sons and daughters are asked to carry the weight of this and any war, the most insulated families in this country, like the Trumps, often the loudest about strength and bravery and valor, almost never pay the same price. War is a series of choices. And when leaders talk about American deaths as simple as the weather, like inevitability, the country has to ask a hard question. Who is this war for? Who is it protecting? This is The Quiet Loud. Like and subscribe and join the Quiet Quorum. So tonight, we're going to dive into some of the most pressing matters happening in our country. So let's count it down. And let's start with what we know. Americans are dead. The Pentagon has identified Army Reserve soldiers killed in that March 1st drone attack in Kuwait, with names released of 4 of the 6, and the remaining are pending notification. Now, once the casualties begin, that's when escalation starts to take its place. Then you start to see retaliation, posturing, deployments, alerts, and political messaging. Now, we've already seen retaliation. There isn't a safe consulate or embassy in all of the Middle East right now. And we've seen the posturing on both sides of this. Stateside, you see the war that is now not a war, that is a war but might be a war, but is an operation or a series of operations that may have required authorization but don't, because it's just submissions adding up to an operation that might be an operation that's not a war but could be a war. But we don't know how long it could last. Situations like these is where the public deserves specifics, and we deserve them every single day. We deserve to know exactly what happened and where and what's happening now and under whose authority and what authority, with what objectives, and what is the defined off-ramp. When do we get out of this thing? I mean, a tenet of the Trump campaign was no more forever wars. and you come out and say it's not a war. It is a war, but it's not a war, but it's operations, but we don't know how long the operations are going to take. That kind of stuff takes our attention off the ball. It takes the bandwidth of the country's attention. It sucks up oversight. And eventually, it takes money away from a country that is already struggling to make ends meet. Okay. So if this conflict is going to expand, and oversight can't just be a weekend hobby, and it can't just be on Congress. We have to all be manning the ship. We have to all be paying attention to what's happening here. And we have to be listening to people on the ground who know what they're talking about. Okay. And in absence of that, we have to find the people we can trust and listen to what they're saying. And we have to come back daily. I know that this stuff gets tiresome, but we have to come back daily, and the leadership has to be public facing, and it has to be relentless. We need our leaders to continue this oversight and make sure that we're staying on the facts of the case and not just the salacious, adrenaline laden stuff about strikes and whatever else. So let's sit with the president's words one more time. He said, quote, "Sadly, there will likely be more before it ends. That's the way it is." Speaking on the deaths that have happened. That sentence is doing a whole lot. It acknowledges, first of all, that the more deaths are likely. And it frames it as normal under wartime. But the point of civilian leadership is not to normalize loss. It's to justify the choices that they've made. Now, every time there was some kind of armed response or drone strike, or God forbid there was a loss of life, no matter what you said about presidents like Joe Biden, he knew how to capture that tone. He knew how to capture that message, how to really value the lives that were laid down in the name of American freedom, in the name of sometimes democracy across the globe. So we have to find people who are going to appeal to that and not tell us to get used to seeing American servicemen and women dying, and we don't even fully know why. And if we start to hear inevitability, trying to train us that this is going to be a normal thing, then it becomes the public's duty to scrutinize, to really pay attention, to ask the right questions. And this is the perfect time to do it. When foreign conflict widens, domestic posture shifts real fast. Threats start to stream and warnings start to come out, and heightened security. We're seeing all that kind of stuff happen at the Capitol right now because, there's going to be some people out there who, sad as it is to say, are going to be crisis provocateurs and going to come out and try to scare people. And they're going to be real people who have been radicalized to come out and make some kind of a show. And so staying vigilant is a warranted thing to say. But when that state becomes a permanent state of anxiety, when all we're doing is thinking about the threat level, that is, I think, what they're looking for, what Trump is looking for. Without a crisis, there is no Trump. He came in saying, this country is going to hell and only I can fix it. And at every turn, this is what he's saying. He wants us to be afraid so that we have to be more and more relying on him and him alone. No more falling for the performative, fragmented, and reactionary responses that are happening from the Trump administration that just seek to obfuscate. We need people to actually tell us what's going on here. Which brings us to none other than the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Tuesday with DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and this thing was a mess, a pure dumpster fire, okay? And during that hearing, senators pressed her about reporting around the purchasing of DHS aircraft, including luxury jets that seem to have, really ritzy and luxurious hotel bedrooms in them, and the optics surrounding that, and the optics surrounding her, I guess, aide and former Trump first term member Corey Lewandowski, and for some reason why he's constantly traveling around with her. And I think he's just some kind of an aide. I don't even think he has a real job within the administration right now, but she's a married woman and she's traveling on luxury jets that have, I mean, you got to see these photos. This thing looked like it was some kind of a penthouse suite, and she's traveling around the country doing these crazy raids with her seeming side piece boo, Corey Lewandowski. Hey, look it up. Don't take my word for it. All right. So what we need in this case is for the Senate and every other committee to bring her in and question her, because we need clean governance. And we need to know that when they're going out and spending the American people's money, it's not on luxury jets, and that the contracts are being up for bid and not going to friends of hers or people that worked on her campaign, as we were finding out yesterday that she was trying to hide. We need to know these people are fleecing the American people, and we need to get to the bottom of it. They're not being truthful about anything. You know, we're seeing now that Pam Bondi has now been subpoenaed by Congress so that she can come in and testify about the Epstein situation. So things are heating up, and people are getting tired of these coming in to these hearings and trying to do everything but tell a straight out lie. So you're coming and you're dancing circles around it, or you're talking about facts, or what you call facts, that have nothing to do with what you're being questioned about. Or if you're coming in the case of Pam Bondi, you're coming in with a burn book of Oppo research you've had your staff put together so that your every response can be a hit piece on the individual Congress people who are asking you these questions. I mean, that right there, if you had any legitimacy to begin with, that is completely blown, and it's blown in front of everybody. And speaking of Epstein, like I was talking about before, the House Oversight Committee, which also subpoenaed Pam Bondi, has released videos of recent depositions taken by Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Now, there was a lot of heat surrounding this because Bill Clinton's name came up in the Epstein files. But there was nothing, I don't think, other than the philanthropic missions that he rode on the plane going over there. Now, I'm not somebody who knows, and if you catch any person, let me just go ahead and say this. Let me just go ahead and clarify this. If you are somebody who is caught doing something untoward, let them take you down. I'm not here protecting anybody. If you're caught on there, take them down. So I didn't have a problem with the Clintons coming in and testify. I kind of had a problem with Hillary coming in. She didn't show up in any of it. But this was just another time to try to drag her name through the mud and embarrass her, and Bill Clinton as well. Because like I said, he was mentioned, but Hillary wasn't. They came in and said, hey, we'll come on in. We just want to do public hearings, turn on the cameras and let the world see what we're talking about in here. Well, Republican leadership did not want to do that at all. So they had closed door sessions, and then it was brought out that somebody inside, Lauren Boebert, was taking pictures and sending them out so that their echo chamber could spin up whatever narrative they were going to have about it. And Hillary, when her team found out and she found out about it, she did what I would have done, which is got up and leave. Because, like I said, she was not mentioned in it at all. Her husband was. But he was not mentioned in it nearly as much as the man who claims to be exonerated by the Epstein files, who is Donald Trump. He has not been nowhere near close to exonerated. In fact, he has been mentioned in the Epstein files more than 38,000 times. In fact, congressman who had a chance to go and view the unredacted documents said that when they searched Trump's name, it came up over 1 million times. So how is it that these same files exonerate you, but they bring down all of these other people who seemingly are across the aisle or issue from you, and you're happy to see their downfall? And not only those folks, but across the globe, people who have been found to be involved with this, even if it doesn't completely implicate them in something, just the adjacence to it is dragging them down. People are being arrested. People are losing their jobs. People are having to resign from careers and companies that they've been involved with their whole working lives. And here, the main man is claiming that he's been exonerated. So this Epstein case is not just salacious. It's an institutional stress test. It's about wealth and secrecy and leverage. And it's about those gatekeepers who try to keep it all from coming out and to keep their leader from being exposed. And it's about the machinery that does all that, and that same machinery that decides whose reputations are protected. And we know that it's happening because Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is no friend of liberals or the left or whatever it is you'd call it, but came right out and said that Donald Trump told her he did not want her involved in releasing this because it was going to be hurtful to his friends. So yeah, with all that going on, and then a war kind of opening and expanding at the same time, there is legitimate public questions about how this conflict crowds out accountability for the Epstein files. And it shifts the headlines over. We're talking about this and not that. So is it creating cover? And before people come at me and say, well, people are dying out here, you wouldn't actually have us believe that he would go and start a conflict just to hide this. I'm sorry, but I absolutely believe that he would. I do. I absolutely believe that he would. I mean, this is a man who said, he believed that people who get wounded out here are suckers and losers. So I absolutely believe he doesn't care about them. Also, what it needs to prove is that our government can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can have multiple conflicts happening and still keep our eye on the ball. He wants us to drop the ball. He wants us to not be able to pay attention to what's going on because of what's happening this very year. He is afraid of not only those files catching up with him, but he's afraid all of it leads to his power slipping away and his freedom slipping away. And the other thing that does that besides the Epstein files is primary season. Okay, there was primaries just as recent as March 3rd, and primaries were held in Texas and in Arkansas and in my home state of North Carolina. And these primaries matter, especially and even during this time where there's conflict, armed conflict, like a war happening, because wartime politics change the framing overnight. Suddenly everything on that end is about strength and about loyalty and about patriotism. Okay, on one side, and on the other side, we're talking oversight and we're talking authority, right? So we have to watch out for who's saying what, because that's going to really betray what side they're going to land on if they are so lucky to be voted in November. So please keep your ear out for what these people are actually saying. All right, let's keep this tight and real, because war hits the economy through a few reliable channels. It's definitely going to be energy and shipping and insurance. And I'm going to get to it because you're like, insurance, what are we talking about? And we have credible reporting showing shipping costs surging as the Strait of Hormuz becomes a focal point of risk. These super tankers are the ones that can get through are paying increased rates and broader freight spikes. And even before you can trace downstream every single price tag, you can see the mechanism. This is an area that is in conflict. So immediately the risk goes up, which means the insurance on that goes up, which means inevitably that the shipping costs are going to go up as well. And everyday people are the ones that are paying the difference. It's just another tariff. It's the war tariff, if you will, which brings us back to the original question. When leaders talk about American deaths as, quote, the way it is, who's being insulated from the consequences and who's being asked to absorb them? So now we're going to talk about something that's separate but the same, very similar. So on March 3rd, U.S. Southern Command announced Ecuadorian and U.S. military forces launched operations against what Southcom calls a designated terrorist organization, okay, right in Ecuador, framing it as action against narco-terrorists. Now, this is not automatically connected to Iran, but it is connected kind of in the specter of governance. Because when the definition of terror expands, the mission can then expand. And when the mission expands, oversight burden expands. Because now, like I said before, You have us looking over here. We're looking at Iran. We're looking at Venezuela. We're looking at Ecuador. We're looking at Epstein. We're looking at tariffs, right? We're looking at the dismantling of the Department of Education. We're looking at trying to turn the Department of Defense into the Department of War. We're looking at what's going on with the Kennedy Center. We're looking at what's happening with the National Institutes of Health, with the CDC, with all kinds of things. They're trying to get us to take our eye off the ball. And if the country is stretching across multiple fronts at once, then the public definitely deserves sober accounting. We need to know what the scope is and on whose authority. And by goodness, we need to know the costs. And for nothing, when, who's going, and when are they coming back home? Because not knowing these things is how democracy sleepwalks into a permanent war mindset. And we can't become a country like that. You think it can't happen. Look at places like Iran. Look at places like Iraq and Israel and Palestine. War-torn, constantly having strikes and things like that happen. We don't want to get used to that. We just got out of, 2 20-year-long wars. And you're coming in saying that it's not a war, but it's an operation. But we don't know how long the operation could take. It could be 4 or 5 days. Oh, no, what, 4 or 5 weeks? Oh, maybe it'll be a little bit longer than 8 weeks. We'll see. We can't do this, guys. Let's just keep an eye on that. I won't hold you guys any longer. All right, just know that when war expands, headlines rotate and the system gets tested. So we have to stay disciplined and we have to stay focused. All right? Find specific source facts always. Okay? Look for places like Midas Touch and other independent media like that. Don Lemon, Joy Reid, Brian Tyler Cohen, Adam Mockler. I know I'm missing a bunch of folks, but there are folks out there who are giving good information, and it's sourced information, and it's diverse information, so we know it's not coming out of an echo chamber. But guess what? Sometimes echo chambers can be good. The Republican echo chamber keeps them locked in a lot of bad information, but if we can do the same thing using the power of good information, then we can make sure that people are educated and they know what's coming down the pike and they know how to spot the Trump lies when they hear them. We're Americans and we know Americans can do hard things. And that means that we definitely deserve leaders who treat our lives as sacred and not inevitable. It is not, this is what it is. Please like and subscribe. Join the Quiet Quorum. I'm DeAnthony Collins. Please stay grounded, stay informed, and stay loud quietly. This has been The Quiet Loud. Y'all take care.